Thank you for joining us. This is the Allon Exchange with Jay and Brittany Hagy, financial advisors and the founders of Allon Planning Partners. I'm Spike Spangle. Jay and Brittany, how are you both doing this week?
Doing great, Spike.
Hello.
Glad to be here.
Awesome, because we have a great show and we have to get started right away because we've got so much we want to get to.
Diving in.
Fact or fiction, financial matters here. We want to go through the financial edition here of some of the things that you actually hear in the office.
Sure.
And this isn't to make anybody feel bad or silly or embarrassed, but sometimes it's information we've heard around the water cooler, we've read on the internet somewhere, and I want to get the real fact, or is it fiction?
That's right.
From the both of you. Sound good?
True or false?
Let's dive in.
All right. True or false, I can control how and when I pay my taxes with my money on my retirement accounts. True or false? Fact or fiction?
You actually can. This is good news.
Good news. Good news.
This is really good news that you actually have some say in when and how you can pay taxes on these retirement accounts that you have amassed, right? So, man, this is something, one of those topics that we could just talk and talk and talk about, because there is so much within this topic that people miss out on. And we want to help folks not miss out. We want you to engage the process and be able to make the most of what you have by minimizing your taxes. So I'm going to jump right into a solution for you, because we identify a lot of problems. We identify, okay, yes, we can do this. No, we can't do this. Here's something you can do right now, an action step. You can go to exchangemytaxbill.com. Exchangemytaxbill.com. Just like you can take this website, use this as a tool to put in some basic information, and it's going to give you some information back about what your tax debt actually. Yes, you have a tax debt. You do, whether you know it or not. If you have a 401k or an IRA, you have a tax debt. And this will identify what that actually is, how much of the dollars in those accounts are actually yours. That will help begin the process of uncovering what you may be missing within these tax accounts.
I think it's one of the biggest mistakes, because math comes down to the inputs, and if you got the wrong inputs,
That's right.
I learned that all through my college years, you get the answer wrong.
That's
and
right.
if you're planning on retiring because of what you see in your 401k, your 403b, you've got the math wrong, because you don't actually have
not all
that.
yours. And so the fact is, we can't control when and how we pay those taxes. So you don't, up until 73
RMD
right now this year, we'll be 75 eventually, up until you get to RMD, required minimum distribution. I actually sat with a gentleman last week, and he's turning 73 this year, and I got to explain to him, sir, you're going to start paying taxes on this money because you have to draw a certain amount out. He was unaware he had to draw out any amount for required minimum distribution, and so he don't need the money. He's in a place where he's done really well, and it's like it's going to create a tax burden for him. So how can you plan before you get to required minimum distribution age to put these or get these dollars into tax-free accounts, maybe Roth accounts, so that you're not paying taxes and being told how you have to pay taxes on those accounts again, or when, which is a even bigger deal, because by the time you turn 73 or I turn 73, tax rates may be well above where they're at right now. So you want to make sure that you understand and have a strategy around tax planning. That's why exchangemytaxbill.com, Brittany, is a great resource for folks.
Great to know this one from you both, that you actually can control your taxes. I think a lot of folks probably think that they have no control over taxes. I just have to wait for April 15th. Then I've got those RMDs and everything else. You can choose. You can choose to pay into a tax-deferred account and not pay those taxes until much later when you start taking it out. You could choose to pay the taxes now in a different kind of account, like a Roth 401k, and not have to worry about it. It's the question of, would you rather pay taxes on the seed or the harvest? You can actually time your own taxes.
Well, and a lot of times it's both and. It's a blend of the two that really makes an excellent tax strategy, that really makes an excellent income strategy, because what you want to do is, when you get to the point of retirement, you want to have different sums of money, different buckets, so to speak, from which to pull from. So whether it's taxable, some dollars you take out that are taxable, and then other dollars you take out that are tax-free. So you want to be able to have that diversification when you go to take those dollars out. So you have more say than you think you have. So again, we're raising awareness around that. That's actually true.
All right, let me move on to the next one. Fact or fiction, our financial edition here. The type of account that I use for investing determines on how much risk I actually take. I can't believe, I think you said, you heard this in the office.
We met with a lady not too long ago who was convinced that because she had a Roth, that she was taking less risk than a traditional IRA, which is understandable to some point, because all you hear from a lot of advisors are, yeah, get in the Roth, or some financial talking gurus, out there is just like, you should just have a Roth, you should just have a Roth. Well, she had taken that as it's safe, right? The Roth, a traditional IRA, a 401k, a Roth 401k, it's only the wrapper, it's only the vehicle that you're holding the funds in. Your risk tolerance is a totally different conversation. How you're allocated and diversified is what gives you the amount of risk or amount of safety that you're going to have, not because it is a certain type of account. It goes back to the tax planning. That is what matters on what type of account you have, is how will you pay taxes on them, not how much risk you're taking in.
So let's illustrate it like this. Think about it, pills that we take, right? The medicine that we take. You've got the exterior casing of the pill. That's like the vehicle. That's like the Roth IRA or the 401k, the exterior casing of the medicine. It's what's inside that determines what it actually does, right?
Yes.
So same with our investments. It's the investment allocation within the casing of the medicine pill that makes the difference, right? That's what makes it safe or risky or blended, but that's what determines that.
That is absolutely the first time I've heard that metaphor. And I love that, though, because, it's just the wrapper of what it's in. It can be a 401k, it can be a Roth 401k, it could be your own IRA, but it really depends on what's inside of it. I also think I've also kind of had some folks say the same thing. Well, this is my work account, that's the 401k. I'm pretty sure it's pretty safe. It's really more about what you've selected, not what kind of account it is.
And the risk here, or the threat here, is not knowing how you're actually invested, right? It's having the wrong idea about how much risk you're actually taking. Because we may sit down with an individual or a couple and talk through their statements, and we may say, hey, how are you allocated, or what types of investments are you in? And they say, oh, I'm really conservative. But then we look at the statements,
and it's not conservative.
And the statements don't reflect that comment, right? And so they don't line up. So all too often we find out that how people really feel they are invested or think they're invested may not be actually in reality how it's happening.
I always enjoy
be aware of that.
Doing the programs with you. You all believe in diversification. You even believe in diversification of hosts. Our colleague Brad Johansson, who joins you on the programs, I appreciate that. But we always talk about diversification and purpose-based planning.
That's right.
That's part of the basis of your book here as well. Do you talk about your kind of diversification strategies to help people? The phrase in our industry is mitigate risk, but basically try to shield themselves from risk. Do you discuss that at all in the book here?
Yeah, we go into some detail about that in particular, but if you're looking at this book as a whole, it's not going to be the hardest book you've ever had to read. We make it simple on purpose because we want you to understand there are 5 major components of a financial plan: investment management, income planning, tax planning, estate planning, and healthcare. And we break down each one of those within this resource. And if you come in for that complimentary consultation, you'll receive one of these books, and it'll probably take you a couple hours to read, and hopefully you'll get a lot of information out of it that will help you. But we would love to put this in your hands when you come in for that consultation.
And by the way, that consultation, it's not just a 10 or 15-minute conversation. They're going to take a look at the investments that you're using and selecting right now, show you exactly how much risk you're taking. Maybe you're doing okay. Again, as licensed fiduciaries, it's kind of like a doctor. Do no harm. If you're doing fine, they'll let you know that. If you're taking way too much risk, or you're maybe not taking enough risk to make sure your accounts can grow for you, they'll let you know that. We'll talk to you about taxes, estate planning, healthcare choices, which we're going to talk about after this break. It's not just a consultation. It's your meeting to get started on your own free written financial plan with the team here from Allon Planning Partners. And just for coming on in, you'll get a complimentary copy of their book. More of the Allon Exchange when we get back right after this.
Well, about almost 10 years ago now, Brittany and I came to the realization that the position that we were in, we wanted to expand what we were doing. We were in full-time ministry. And so I realized as I was counseling people a lot, it had a lot to do with finance.
Because finances are a touchy subject. It can be challenging, and that's what we want to do, help people prepare for those unexpecteds.
I had a friend at the time who was in the industry and ran an RIA and decided to, take a sneak peek into what he was doing, and really, loved the model of being able to be independent and fiduciary in our advice and the way that we help people.
And when we decided to begin our own independent firm, we knew there's a better way. There's just a better way to do this. It's beyond transactional interaction. It's this relational component that we knew we want to have. And I believe that each individual and family has to find the right fit for them.
And I think most people that walk in here are looking for that unique touch, like independently, how can we help your family succeed?
Welcome back to the Allon Exchange with Jay and Brittany Hagy. They are the founders of Allon Planning Partners. I'm Spike Spangle. We're talking about some fact and fiction, the real truths here about our finances, some of the things even sometimes you hear in the offices. Right. A positive one, I'm hoping here, fact or fiction, the health savings accounts. Triple tax advantage. 3 benefits to using a health savings account. Is that fact or myth?
100% fact. And we don't talk about HSAs enough, I don't believe, because they are so tax advantage. All of us are going to have medical expenses. If we're breathing and living, we're going to have medical expenses, right? The money you put into these accounts are generally reduce your taxes, right? They reduce how much tax you have to pay. The second part is any growth on those accounts inside them become tax-free, and any money that you spend out of those accounts for qualified medical expenses are tax-free when you pull them out. So they really have a triple tax advantage here, that people are going to spend this money one way or another, and you might as well be getting your medical expenses paid for tax-free. And so we need to talk about it because we talk about a lot of financial wrappers, whether it's Roths or IRAs or whatnot. Use the health savings accounts when they're available
it can actually be an additional retirement account.
This is what I've been starting to read.
Over.
But can I throw you a bonus fact or fiction? Do these things go away if you don't use them? I mean, there was a lot of confusion when these things started to come out 10 or 15 years ago, and there are different versions. There's the health savings account, different ones. Do you have to find out through your employer to make sure that you're using them properly? Do they go away if you don't use them in that calendar year?
You should probably talk to your employer about how yours is set up in particular, but they do not go away. It's not a use it or lose it. They roll over year typically, right? And anything that you have, a lot of people don't know this, after 65, you can actually not be penalized on them anymore once you hit the Medicare age. You can utilize those funds to pay for anything outside of medical expenses, but you will be taxed on it. The tax advantage goes away, but it becomes like another IRA that you've put your money into that has grown tax-free, and now if you spend it on something besides medical care, then it'll be taxed. But if it's medical care, it's tax-free, and they continue year after year.
So it's not a use it or lose it. You can use it for something, right? There's a benefit if you use it for healthcare needs, but if you need it for something else and you're over 65, you can do that too.
That's right.
So if you're using it properly, you don't have to pay tax on it on the way in. If you use it on medical expenses, you don't have to pay tax on it on the way out, and you get the growth on it of whatever you're choosing to be in there. So that's an interesting aspect of it. I'm sure that depends on the employer plan, but is it something in like savings rates, or do you choose what kind of account? Or is it an
most
index
of these accounts, you can choose the investments just like you have on your IRA or your 401k, so you can be as risky or as risk adverse as you would like. So you can absolutely just put it in a S&P 500 index fund and take all the equity risk, or you can put it in a money market account and just get the increase of interest. You get to choose what your investments are.
So the truth is there are many tax advantages for our viewers. They just need to find out, does their plan sponsor,
does it apply?
Do you have a health savings account there? Many great tax advantages. Just one little nugget right there that you can do on Monday and find out from your plan sponsor. But why do I have to worry about my health savings account? Fact or fiction, isn't Medicare going to cover all my expenses in retirement. Is this true?
Go ahead, Brittany.
Yeah, a lot of folks are mistaken when they think that Medicare will just cover everything, right?
That's right.
So there are a lot of expenses that are covered through Medicare, but there's Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, all of these different components. Some of them you pay a premium for, some of them you have to pay an additional coverage amount for. So it's not all just automatically covered, which is why we have a Medicare specialist in our office that walks our clients through that process, knows the ins and outs, the filing strat, how to do all of that when it comes to filing and how much you have to pay to get X and Y, Z benefit, right? So again,
and that's
be
also
informed
not
around it.
necessarily a set it and forget it thing. As you were saying, the A, B, C, D, E, F, and G's of Medicare, sometimes there are changes, sometimes you have medication costs, those things can go up, and then there's all of the out-of-pocket costs of things that aren't covered yet. Right. There are still talking about things like hearing aids and eye care and dental care, but a lot of this is either supplemental or out of your own pocket. So you think it's worth reviewing even your own Medicare every single year?
I think you have to review it every single year because your physical needs are going to change every single year. You're going to maybe need more medical help this next year than you did the last. You may now have an eyesight problem where you need to add a supplemental vision care. There's things that are going to change constantly, but the law is going to also change constantly. You should let someone review, and that's why we have a Medicare specialist that will do that for everyone that comes in.
Well, and that speaks to something else that we apply to all of our planning strategies, is that when you have a plan, it should be flexible. It should be able to ebb and flow with what may occur in your life, right? It can't be so rigid to where every little thing has to go as planned for it to work. You want to build in that fluidity so that you can make adjustments when needed. That's a very important part of all this that we have to acknowledge at this point in the game.
One last fact or fiction on Medicare. Fact or fiction, Medicare will take care of my long-term care needs in retirement.
That's unfortunately false.
It's a big fiction. Yeah.
It's a big fiction, and a lot of folks feel that is going to happen until they get there, and they wait too late, and they think, oh, I thought Medicare is supposed to cover some of this. They do not. There's a huge gap in what Medicare and Medicaid will cover, and you unfortunately have to spend down a lot of your retirement assets before they'll even help. So you want to make sure you have a plan put together for this, because that is not
interesting to me that the two financial advisors here are talking about all of these medical decisions. When we do the complimentary review and the written financial plan, to both of you, maybe even together, you mind telling me what are the different elements of things that you will talk about with folks when they come in for the very first time?
Yeah, so a comprehensive financial plan, we're going to talk through 5 different areas to ensure that you have coverage in each of these areas. We begin with investment management. What do you have and how is it working for you? We move to income planning. We actually work to take distributions from your assets to ensure you have what you need when you need it. We consider tax planning, not just tax paying, but tax planning, looking ahead and planning when and how you want to pay taxes. We're going to look at health care, just like we've been talking about here, whether it's long-term care, your Medicare coverage, all of these different types of things. And then finally, estate planning. You want to ensure you have proper estate documents, both while you're living and when the time comes to pass your assets on.
And all 5 of those things are so important. We find that this is the biggest gap in our industry, is that folks start and stop with investment management. Most times, the person that's giving you investment management advice are not covering these other areas. And income planning, tax planning, estate planning, healthcare, they are dominoes that could take out your investment strategies altogether, any one of those. So if anyone's giving you financial advice and is not covering this comprehensive plan, that's why we're here to give that review for you. That's why we're here to give you a second look. Go ahead and reach out to us at the number below, or you have a QR code to do so. We would love to set up a complimentary appointment for you and your family.
Call that phone number. Call it right now. People are standing by. They'll schedule that appointment for you. Comprehensive, all of the things that Jay and Brittany both just said there. More fact or fiction, financial matters. The truth's for you when we get back right after this.
A fiduciary is really just a legal term saying that we are legally bound to hold our clients' interests before our own. And so we are licensed that way. We're licensed as a fiduciary, which means that we have that legal obligation. But hopefully, folks, when they come in, they understand that we take it to the next level. we're actually trying and strive, I guess, to treat everyone as family. And so we want to make sure that when folks walk in here that we're not trying to sell them a product. We're not trying to place them into something before they get into the door. We really want to take a unique approach to whatever situation that they have and craft a plan that's most beneficial for them.
Come see what sets us apart and what makes us different. And so much of that is that it is beyond this transactional approach. It's beyond just the transaction into the relational.
So that's really what we do day in and day out. And so we live not only by the fiduciary standard, but by the family standard, because we want folks to know that we want what's best for them, because ultimately what's best for them is what's best for us, because it keeps clients happy. And so that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that they have the best situation possible for their finances.
Welcome back to the Allon Exchange. Fact or fiction financial matters. This is our lightning round. We got 3 more to get through right now. Fact or fiction, being married gives me legal access to my spouse's retirement accounts.
Fiction. That is not true. Even if you are named as the beneficiary on your spouse's accounts, you cannot access those dollars if your spouse is still living.
That's right.
That's the caveat here.
That's right.
So the concern is if something like for Jay and I where we're married, if something were to happen to Jay and I need to access his retirement account while he's still living. Right. Yeah, he's incapacitated, maybe in a coma, or God forbid something like that has occurred. And
yeah, put me in a coma.
Yeah. I felt that. He's like, what are you doing to me here?
That's good.
And I need to get into his 401k or his IRA to pay those medical bills.
What about his investment account? Same thing?
His investment account, no.
Period.
Well,
if it's in my name alone?
It depends on how the account is titled, right? If my name is not on the account as an account owner, then it goes for that as well. So it's very, very important for folks to realize that fact, because they would not have access to those dollars if they needed, without what's called a power of attorney.
That's
this is where we talked about in the last segment, the 5th component of financial planning is estate documents. This is a big one, especially, well, for couples and individuals, but for everyone to know they have someone who has authority over those accounts if they can't do that.
For couples, you need to discuss with one another to make sure that we have access to the accounts in case something happens to you. And if you are single going into your retirement years, who do you want to determine who could help you if something happens to you? These are those medical and financial directives. Financial lightning round, that was obviously a myth. Your spouse does not have access to the accounts unless you have them named on there. I have multiple accounts, fact or fiction, with multiple institutions. Therefore, I'm diversified safely. Fact or fiction?
Fiction. You may be diversified amongst accounts and institutions, but really, like we've talked about earlier, it's about what's inside of those accounts. It's the correlation. You may have 32 different accounts at 12 different organizations, but if they all are holding basically the same thing and they're correlated exactly the same, they may have a lot of high risk or may have a lot of low risk. You just don't know. It's really the correlation of your assets that bring diversification, not how many accounts that you have. So that's the first thing. Positioning is everything when it comes to investment management.
Don't you think somebody might be thinking, though, well, it's better for me to have 2 different financial teams or 3 different financial teams, because what if somebody is really bad at this? I don't know that's a good direct, because now you're usually paying or compensating 3 different people.
Yeah, but what happens when you're doing that, though, is that what one is doing is undoing what the other is doing.
A lot of times.
I mean, we find that even with financial advisors and CPAs, which is why we work so closely with the network of professionals for our clients, estate law attorneys, CPAs, us as the financial advisors and the quarterback of your financial plan. All of those individuals should be working together for you and not undoing what the other has done.
Right. The other, I think, misconception on that is when you're diversifying, even if you think you're working with different people, you often then have overlap in the kinds of investments that you're using in there.
Yeah, and how are you diversified not only in your asset management, but in your tax status, as we talked about before. There's many layers of diversification that's not just about what positions I'm holding. That's just the beginning of it. But yeah, it's a very much of a fiction. This is one area I tell folks when they come in, you want your left hand to know what your right hand's doing. You do not want to say, well, I'm going to test this strategy over here and test this strategy over here and see how it works out. I'm going to let this guy hold this much money and this guy and this bank hold this much money. It may diversify you if you want the FDIC insurance at a bank, right? But it's not going to diversify you in the way that investment management's done.
All right, so that's obviously a fiction there. And then factor fiction. Oh, I like this one a lot. I've been hearing this one a lot.
Yeah.
Factor fiction. I don't need a financial advisor. I've got an app for that.
Got an app.
I got an app for that.
Hey,
We've got an app for
take care of
everything.
I don't know,
YouTube app,
factor fiction,
something.
maybe it's just good luck. You know, I think it's fiction. I mean, you know, there's too many factors that play into a lot of the apps that are out there today, the robo-advisors and stuff like this. It's hard to get human emotion, and it's hard to help really goal plan with a lot of these apps, right? They can tell you, okay, if you put your money in this basket and you set this many years, you should expect this return, right, over time. How many times have you started something and stuck to it for 10 years? Because there's volatility, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to have someone to explain to you along the way. And number two, life happens in those 10 or 12 years or whatever that length of time may be. So you need someone that is giving you a holistic approach. Now, if you just have an advisor that's giving you one deal, and that's maybe investment management, they're only talking to you about one thing, sure, I may see, okay, maybe an app could do with that. But we talk about 5 components. If you've got a holistic financial advisory team working for you, and we're helping you with taxes, with estate planning, with income planning, with your health care, with Medicare, it's too much for an app to handle. So it's just too deep. So I would say fiction for
and apps can be beneficial for maybe to supplement what you're doing. For example, to make sure you're staying on track with a spending plan that you've set in place, right? Or making sure you're saving enough and maybe automatically sending funds from one account to another or something. So they can be really useful tools, but they should not take the place of this overarching plan, right? We've talked so much, even throughout today's show, about all the components of a comprehensive financial plan, which include investment management, income planning, tax planning, estate planning, and healthcare. All of those need to be covered, which is why we say it's really, really hard to replace all of that with one app or a YouTube video, right?
Yeah. And even Vanguard did a study a couple years ago that will tell you a financial advisor that's doing it the proper way adds about 3% growth year over year to your portfolio. It's huge.
And I can only get a yes or no on this one. Fact or fiction? The written financial plan is absolutely free.
Yes.
Yes, that is a fact. That is a fact, folks. You can get your own written financial plan right now. You can call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. There are people standing by right now. They'll schedule an appointment. There's no cost to come in and do that. We're also interactive. Even though it's the end of the show right now, you can open up your phone to the camera function, point it at this QR code, and click on it. It'll take you over to their website. You can schedule an appointment right there. For Jay and Brittany, thank you so much for watching the program. We'll all be back again next week. Call that phone number.